Right. Gonna welcome everyone. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Weird. I already welcomed everybody. I'm going to start with audience introductions. Charles, can you start? Yep, sorry. Get you moving.
Charlie Swan, principal of Derigo Elementary School.
Jason Long, principal at TW Kelly Dirigo Middle School and curriculum coordinator for the district.
Brian Keene, technology director.
Amy Hotston, parent. Kathleen Zostek, Dixfield resident.
All right. I'm going to, so we have only Natalie, so we'll have to do roll call. I need a motion. We have adjustments to the agenda and you can see the following. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Seeing none, roll call.
John,
Yes.
Larry.
Yes.
Bruce.
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Natalie,
yes,
Barbara,
Yes.
Liz.
Yes.
Mary Ann,
Yes.
Carl.
Yes.
All right, before I start, I forgot to introduce, we have Sylvia. What's her last name? Hodson. And we are going to have two new student reps. Joe deserted us for senioritis, which is all right. So this is Sylvia. What year are you in the high school?
I'm a sophomore.
A sophomore, so maybe we can keep her for a little while. All right, consideration of the minutes of the January 24th, 2023. Could I have a motion, please? And a second? Comments, questions, revisions? Seeing none, roll call.
Carl,
Yes.
Mary Ann,
Yes. She
Liz.
tricked us. Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Natalie,
Yes,
Tim,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Dawn.
Yeah.
I guess she's keeping you on your toes tonight. Okay. Public comment. This is the time the public can make a comment up at our mic here, or if they raise their hand online, we are respectful. We do not talk about staff or individual board members. Do we have any comments? Anybody got their hand raised? Okay, seeing none, communications.
So we have two communications tonight. RSU 56 was notified that the revolving renovations application was approved by the Maine Department of Education. This revolving renovations grant funding is to install privacy stalls at Derigo High School in the bathrooms. The total is just over 214,000, with 68% being paid by the Department of Education, the same as they would do with our FY23 funding. And so that turns out to be 214,750 is the maximum amount of the loan. 147,168 would be forgiven, paid for by the Department of Education. RSU 56 would be responsible for 67,582, our 31.47%. I will bring this back to the board at the next meeting because you'll need to make decisions around, one, whether we accept this revolving renovation grant funding, two, how you want to go about the paying of it, because you can either go to the bond bank and borrow our 67,582 portion that would be at 0% for 5 years payback, or you can determine if you want to ask the voters to use capital reserve money or balance forward, put into capital reserve and spend it. So you have some options there, but it will be the board to decide at the next meeting and then out to the voters beyond that. In addition, RSU 56 was notified that during the second round of considerations, RSU 56 was approved a bus purchase for the next school year. This also would go through that same funding formula.
So they originally denied us.
So, because they had turnover at the Maine Department of Education, nobody was notified around first considerations. So basically, there were very few applicants. So then they told us they were doing second round, and please go ahead and apply because we didn't have very many first rounds.
Oh,
So it was second round, but
technically it was.
1.2 repeated or something like that.
All right, thank you. New business.
So we're going to start tonight with a budget overview that Mary and I are going to provide. I think I am going to transfer to the podium, but I can defer to you when you're speaking from here, if you'd like. This is our dog and pony show, part of it. All right, so tonight I did ask Mary to help me with this because there's some longitudinal data that I think she can explain more thoroughly than I can. So we'll go right ahead, Jared, with the next page. So as you know, every year when we start a budget, the administrative team is directed by me to say what's best for our students, how do we support our current employees, and how do we respond to community concerns. That's how we go at the questions that we keep in our minds as we think about budgets. Go ahead, Jared, to the next page. So I wanted to talk about the ED 279. So overall, from last year to this year, we are down $99,764.13. I will tell you that when we started looking at the ED 279, Mary and I were both pretty excited. Page 1, our student count was up and our per pupil allocations were up. But when we got to the final page, we were down. And these are the reasons in general why we were down on the ED 279. The mill rate across the state went up from 7.10 last year to 7.29, shifting that to the communities. The valuations were up in all 4 of our towns. The state share decreased from 68.53% last year to 66.16% this year. So we lost about 2%. That was shifted from state allocation subsidy to the towns. And our disadvantage was substantially down. Last year, they had us rated at 0.6335, which is about 63%. And this year, we were rated at 0.4755. I have looked at that across multiple schools in Western Maine, and actually it's across the state of Maine that everybody's sort of facing a similar situation, partly because when we went to free breakfast and lunch for all, there was not really a large impetus for people to fill out the free and reduced paperwork. So even though we did multiple times trying to get that information from families, we really were considerably down, as you can see, almost 20%, according to what was on our ED 279. So that did hurt us. So Mary is going to go through our budget from the inception of RSU 56 when you withdrew to now, as well as the next page. Go ahead, Mary.
So you see on the total budget column, that's just the total budget each of those years, and it hasn't changed dramatically over the years since we started as RSU 56. The dollar increase from the previous year is pretty straightforward, except for 18-19. And what happened that year was when the state changed the funding formula and sent Region 9's money straight to Region 9 on their ED 279 rather than sending it to RSU 56 for us to pay Region 9. So that's why the dollar increase is actually negative, but all things considered, it was a 1.5% increase budget to budget. And then you just see up through the 3.5, 2.02, 0, and 1.85 each year budget to budget increase. And this breaks down the revenue. As you see over in the middle, the carryover that we've been doing, the 277.5 each year, is just a small percent of the total, about 2%. The miscellaneous revenue is also a very small percentage. And so what that leaves is state subsidy and what the towns raise for the local allocation. We don't have a lot of other revenue streams to dip into. And what you'll notice is that in general, when state subsidy goes down, then the local allocation goes up to offset that. And as you can see at the bottom, 23-24 is mostly to be determined because we don't know what the total budget figure will be yet, but we do know the state subsidy figure. And as Pam said, that's down 100,000 from last year. This slide shows the breakdown of miscellaneous revenue. It started out in 17-18, the first year of the district, as being over 100,000. That was our estimated revenue. We had put in the budget 60,000 of estimated main care revenue. That was something that was a carryover from RSU 10 because we'd already budgeted for main care. And truly that is nerve-wracking because we don't know how much main care revenue we'll receive from year to year. And as it turned out that year, we only actually received 36,000 of main care revenue. So what happens, because we estimated 60,000, then there's 24,000 that you have to not spend in the expenditure side to make everything balance. So then that next year, we didn't put any estimated revenue for main care in. And then in 19-20, I believe that was the year that we had many budget votes and did put 22,000 in for main care to try to even things out. But we haven't been putting anything in lately. The last 2 years, we've received less than $10,000 in main care revenue. So for 23-24, we'd like to keep that at zero estimate because we just never know. The technology services column, that is the amount that Region 9 paid us for the first 4 years that we were a district for the services. And then they started getting their technology services elsewhere. The gate receipts is money that comes in from high school basketball and football games, and that stays pretty consistent. So 5,000 is a good figure on that. The state grant for laptops was a grant that was available those first 2 years. And then miscellaneous is made up of when we sell old buses or if Maine School Management sends us a refund for unemployment or workers' comp. And as you can see, we keep that even at 13,900 because again, if we estimate high and then we don't get all of that, then that becomes a problem in the end.
So I talked to you a little bit the first time we went over how the budget process was going to unfold this year like it has in the past. And we have a little more solid information on our uncontrollable increases. So electricity, if you recall, I had said to you that we were currently locked in at 6 cents a kilowatt hour, but that has to be renegotiated for starting in November. So at the time, when I talked to you last time, they were quoting us 22 cents a kilowatt hour. They finally went down to 14 cents a kilowatt hour. Currently, they're at 10. So that's better than we've had. We're getting close to locking in. But even with that, we're looking at an increase of about $35,270 in electricity. Kenny has been working with gas and diesel and heating oil. We are close to locking in on that, but based on his current information, we believe it's going to be an increase of $34,270 for gas and diesel and $19,619 for heating oil. Health insurance, we will not know the maximum increase rate until March 27th, and we will not know our official increase until April 7th. I shared with you last time that we have not received what they consider the maximum rate increase. However, I'm hearing through the grapevine that it could be up to 14%. We put in 10%. I feel like that's a pretty reasonable estimate given what our rate usage was. So they do give us our rate usage each year and we can look at it and kind of get a better estimate whether we're going to be on the high end or the low end. I do not believe we'll be on the low end this year. I'm hoping it comes in under 10%, but I feel like the safest thing to do until April 7th is to make sure we have the 10% in there in case that's where it comes in. And that's $162,936. In addition, we have contracts between the board and the association and all of our groups here at RSU 56, and with their increases in their contract that would have already been negotiated, we're looking at about $191,259. We do not currently know about any increases at Region 9 because they're going through their budget process at the same time. However, with all of those uncontrollables above that, that's $443,354 of uncontrollable increases, which makes a 3.4% increase over the 22-23 total budget amount of $13,215,140. So we're not sitting in the best spot going into that. Wanted to give you a quick look at estimated town assessments, and please know these are estimated, and we have not yet gone out to the towns to say, if you had a X% increase, what is that on $100,000 property? We don't like to ask them to do a bazillion of those because it is work on their part. So we'll wait until we're closer, but at 0% increase. So if we stayed exactly the same as last year, you can look, I'm going to have you look at the next to the last column on the right at the bottom. You're going to see that number of $99,764.13. That's the additional that would need to be raised because that's what we're already down in our ED 279. So at 0%, Canton would see an increase of almost 10%, 9.986. Carthage would have a decrease of 0.954. Dixfield would have a decrease of 0.408. Peru would have an increase of 0.545. And that's at 0% budget to budget. The next sheet is a 1% increase. You can see that Canton would be looking at a 12.3 increase. Carthage would be just about 1. Dixfield would be just over 2, and Peru would be just under 3. And at 2%, Canton would be at just over 14.5%. Carthage would be at 2.885. Dixfield would be at 4.8, and Peru would be at 5.1. And if you went to 3%, you would see that Canton would be at almost 17% increase. Carthage would be at almost 5. Dixfield would be almost 7.5, and Peru would also be 7.4. I'm going to just go through the timelines with you. So tonight you're going to have budget presentations from the elementary school, the middle school, the high school, and curriculum. On the 28th, you will hear from Building Grounds, Transportation, and Special Ed. On the 14th, Technology, Nutrition, and all other. On March 28th, That will be a special budget workshop. We will invite our select people from all 4 towns to attend, as well as any community members that would like to be here to give information and input into the budget. April 4th, we reserve that in case it happens to snow on that March date so that we can still do that special budget workshop. If we get it in March, we don't need to do April 4th. April 11th, the board will need to vote on the budget. On May 9th, they would sign warrants. On May 23rd, we would have our budget hearing validation meeting. And on June 13th, we'd have the referendum vote in all 4 towns. And it would be great if we could have your initial board direction tonight to know where you're thinking you would like to be. And my final slide, I will just say that, as always, anybody who has ideas or suggestions, I would welcome them to either call me, email me, or schedule a time to come in and talk.
Questions? Do you know why, and Brian's not a select person anymore, why is Canton's up that much?
Canton is still dealing with the impact of the windmills, the same situation that Carthage was previously in. So their valuation went up considerably, and that's why they're dealing with that larger impact.
Do you know you don't need it right now, but do you know the evaluation increases for each town? We don't need it right now, but I'm curious to know how many of the what was the percentage the towns went up? Keep talking. Any other questions for Pam on her presentation? Okay. Seeing none, while Mary tries to find that. Charles, you're up.
All right, good evening, everyone. Happy Valentine's Day. Spending it with the people you love the most. That's me. So I'm here to present the DES budget, or just an overview of the budget for you. I want to start with our mission statement at DES. Our mission statement says that Dirigo Elementary School prepares all of our students to be safe, respectful, and responsible citizens who are motivated to be lifelong learners. That's what we strive for. That's kind of the core of what we believe in. And that's kind of where we start when I start thinking about things that I want to address in terms of budget needs in our budget process. So the budget that I have for DES, it does reflect materials for both staff and support materials for regular education instruction. It includes classroom supplies, DES library supplies, salaries and benefits of staff. And in doing my budget, the overall lines in the budget are even from where they were last year, with the exception of a line that's really hard for me to control, and that's course reimbursement, which is a contractual line, and that is up this year just under $7,000. I do want to make a note here that in cutting some of my budget lines, because some areas were higher than others, as would be expected, one of the areas that I cut was in my workbook line. And I just mentioned that now because right now we're contracted for both of our math and our reading for the next 4 or 5 years. So we're all right for 4 or 5 years in cutting that. But when we get down the road a little bit, that's certainly something we're going to have to address and probably increase to be able to meet the needs of both our math and our reading programs. So enrollment at DES continues to be right around that, somewhere between 350 and 370. We are closer to 350 now. Still haven't completely bounced back from our pre-COVID numbers. Staffing, one of our goals is maintaining the staffing that we have at DES, which includes classroom teacher positions, specialist teachers, our Title I staff, our pre-K staff, and our office positions. On the second page, or the back page, however it printed, is a breakdown of the staffing positions at DES and what they're funded through. I'm not going to go through each of those, but I just wanted to share with you where the positions are. This does not include special education, but it does include each of the other positions that are in the building, including Title I and our pre-K office staff and on through. But that's the staffing at DES. Certainly, if you have questions about that at the end, I'll answer those. So co-curricular activities at DES, really that's run through our after-school program. And so I'm really just asking for us to continue to support that program. The district supports that program in two ways. The first one is through transportation, and that's providing the activity bus so students can take that. That's part of the grant. One of the things we guaranteed or promised we would do in the grant. The other thing is paying for academic tutors for after school. That would be teachers and ed techs that are willing to work in the after school program. We do have several that do that. A lot of them do that for 1 day of the 4 days, or some do it 2 days, working with students for 30 or 45 minutes after the school day as part of the program. This also is part of the grant. Right now, that's being paid through ESSER funds currently, but as ESSER funds run out next year, for us to continue with the grant, we're going to have to continue on funding these academic tutoring positions that are after school. So that's something that as we look at next year, we're going to have to try to problem solve and come up with a good solution for. The student support services maintain 2 counselors at DES. So we previously had a counselor, and then we did an outside contracting through Oxford County Mental Health. This year, using part of that money from Oxford County that we were using for Oxford County Mental Health and some of our ESSER money, we were able to have 2 full-time counselors in the building. This has been the right year to have that. We've had certainly a lot of kids in some really significant social crisis issues in the building. And having 2 people there to support the needs of the 350 kids has been certainly well needed and received this year. So I'm saying this just because, again, that's a position that's under the ESSER funds. So after this year, that position, second position, guidance position, our school will not be funded through that source. Office of the Principal, that's myself and Pam, basically. So hopefully we'll continue on with both of us in the building. And then I have 2 additional requests as part of this budget proposal. First one came from the Civil Rights Committee, the district committee. When we met starting last year, we were looking and exploring of starting a civil rights committee at Dirigal Elementary School. There was one already established at the high school and the middle school. It wasn't in the budget process for this year. I have had somebody who has been meeting with kiddos, and we've had anywhere from 7 to 10 kids meeting regularly, monthly, or twice a month, actually, throughout the course of the year. So we're looking to add a civil rights team in our building. And again, this was a strong recommendation also that came out of our district committee to support kiddos in our building as well. The second thing is, I mention this every year, and I'm going to probably keep going until you tell me to stop saying it. But one of the things that I would love to see is for us to take one of the Title I funding from our pre-K ed techs and move that into regular funded so that we can use that Title I funding to provide more intervention. We were able to expand our pre-K program through that funding, and so that's certainly something we've needed and appreciated. But each year I certainly would love to see our Title I funds be used for additional intervention in the building.
Any questions for Charlie? Go ahead, Bruce.
On your breakdown sheet that you had on the next page, can you somewhere along the line give us a breakdown of how many students in each one of these? I mean, you've got down teachers and funding and notes, but it doesn't give us a representation of how many students each one are dealing with.
Sure. So you're talking like grade wise, Bruce?
Yeah, like pre-K, you've got 2 teachers, 2 ed techs. How many children are you dealing with?
Pre-K, we're at, yep. So I actually can I'll email that out because they won't be exact if I'm telling you right now.
Okay.
But I
Yep.
certainly can email that ratio of teachers to students
Yep.
out to you.
I'd
Yep.
just like to know what we're dealing with.
Yep.
Yeah.
I definitely can do that.
Because especially when you're talking about you're down, you figured you're from pre-COVID, you're down a handful of students. Are we having enough staff that can handle things that We have too much staff there?
So the area we're down is right now is actually pre-K.
Okay.
Pre-K numbers came in lower than they have been. So that's an area that we're continuing to look at because my theory, and it's just a theory, that a lot of parents decided pre-K was not where they were gonna move their kids in during COVID time. So a lot of them sat it out during pre-K and some of them even during kindergarten. Was expecting to see kind of a bounce back this year, and we were still kind of at a lower number in pre-K. So that is an area we're looking at to see if that's the trend moving forward, that our enrollment's gonna kind of dip, but it's just been basically a year and a half trend that we've seen that in pre-K right now. So all the other grades are somewhere between the 50 to 65 kids that we normally have, but pre-K's numbers, because they dropped by about 15, that was in one grade. That's a pretty strong dip in one grade. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Seeing none, who's next on the chopping block? Jason.
Happy Valentine's Day as well. I'd like to open with a shout out that I know other people have said, but as I read the paper about districts all over the state, buildings all over the state, and what happened with that really, really cold weekend, I just wanted to publicly say thank you to Kenny and all the custodians crew that babysat our buildings. So nothing bad happened here. That was huge. All righty. So I'm going to start out with the middle school. You could scroll down for me, Jared. The mission of T.W. Kelly Deergo Middle School is to foster the full development of each child's intellectual, emotional, cultural, creative, and physical capabilities, and to educate each child to live and work effectively and cooperatively with others. So the proposed budget is pretty consistent with what we've had in the past 4 of the 5 years I've been principal there. Basically, it supports regular instruction. Our enrollment has been really steady. At the time that I put the report together, I had 175 kids technically on the roster. We've been hovering between 170 and 180 the whole time I've been here. This is the staffing. We basically have 9 full-time regular teachers at the middle school, and we have 9 schedule groups. So at any given time, there is a teacher for each one of the schedule groups. And then we have 0.85 of shared staff. So like we get a little bit of art, we share with the high school. We get a little world language, we share that with the elementary school. We also are able to offer, obviously, ELA, math, science, social studies, health, and PE. We have gifted and talented services within the building, which is a really awesome thing because middle school is all about relationships. And so the fact that we were able to have a teacher who already teaches social studies become certified in GT so she could be there all day to interact with those kids when needed has been a huge bonus. We have our music teacher we share at the high school, foreign language, is an ESSER funded position, and we share a visual arts teacher with the high school as well. I provided a full breakdown just as Charlie and Pam has on the back of the page. You don't need to go there. The other thing that the middle school has is when I became principal, there was an interventionist teaching position. And what we did, it was a combination of creating the GT position as we did, because obviously GT is funded out of a different part of the budget. And then we took that interventionist position and turned it into 2 Ed Tech 3s, who are both really very, very talented. In fact, one of them is a certified teacher. But having Ed Tech 3 interventionists allows me to have a more flexible schedule in terms of the services that they provide for support. And that's been something that's been really successful. And when it was first put in place in 2020, 2021, it actually was done because it represented a savings as well as an improvement in service. But that's the history of those 2 positions. In terms of co and extracurricular activities, I hope to maintain our current level of activities. I have, every year I've been your principal, I've cut controllable costs like pretty much every principal has. We're at a spot right now where I was able to cover increases elsewhere with cuts elsewhere, except when it came to extracurricular transportation costs. The transportation costs are a budget-to-budget increase of about $9,000. That's the only increase in anywhere in my budget, and part of that was absorbed by cuts elsewhere, but I couldn't absorb all of it. Office of the, nope, I skipped one. Student Support Services. So we have a social worker who works for us as a contracted service. He's not there for the full school year or the full day, but we are able to have a social worker. When I inherited the school, there was a guidance position. I took ownership along with my trusty administrative assistant in doing all the guidance work for the school in terms of scheduling and so forth, because what the building really needed was a social worker. I could do some of the other administrative stuff. And then at this point in time, we share our librarian ed tech, comes at the end of the day. And then we have a full-time nurse, but that's just because of the COVID relief funds. The high school has an ESSER funded nurse at this time. Historically, we have shared our nurse with the high school, and when the funding goes away, that's probably what will happen. Office of the principal, so that's me. Well, it's 0.75%, 0.75 of me, and my administrative assistant, or rather 0.75 of her. And I've pretty much eliminated all the funding sources for my professional development. So I'm looking for other ways to develop professionally. That's something that I'm looking into, maybe fellowships or things, I don't know, but I've cut there. Additional requests for the second consecutive year, I'm coming to you with no additional requests. Other funding sources, obviously we've been using the COVID relief funds to make technology improvements, to support intervention with intervention materials, programming to serve at-risk students. My teachers are really great about applying for GoFundMe grants. This year, like we had new microscopes that a teacher applied for and got for the building, all kinds of new text. We also have had, and I put it on Facebook, we've had a pretty cool stream of donations. We had a pretty big donation to support our ski team, which was pretty cool. And we have an active PTO. It's been fundraising. You might have saw me at the raffle, the basketball game. We do what we can and then use that money to sponsor events and purchase kind of fun stuff for fun things don't fit in a normal budget necessarily. There is the breakdown of the 9.85 regular positions I have, 9 of which are truly in the building. 0.85 is shared. And you can see how it's broken down. There are a lot of decimal places there. If you have a question, it's because my staff has been really good about being willing to teach multiple content areas. That's why when I broke it down this way, I don't just have like 0.9 of an English teacher, but I have an English person who's willing to also do a little art on Fridays for the 6th grade. So we've gotten creative with what we've got. Any questions?
Any questions, Bruce?
Jason, can you give me a rundown? How many students you have in the 6th? How many in the 7th? How many in the 8th?
Certainly. In the 8th grade, I have around 62 students. That's my largest cohort. The other 2 cohorts are around 55. It fluctuates a little here and there. I think the incoming class is around between 55 and 60 as well. Fortunately, it's been stable, which helps. Our average class size is 17 or 18 students.
So out of the 9 student staff members that we have, how many assigned to 6th, 7th, and 8th? Do they fluctuate or they go?
Certainly. It's a great question. So the way that we run the building is the 6th grade is like a middle school and the 7th and 8th grade is like a junior high. So I have 3 teachers who are devoted to the 6th grade. And then the remaining 6 teachers share the 7th and 8th grade. And other than music, the other shared staff come and sometimes they'll work with 7th or 8th graders, or sometimes they'll work with 6th graders. It depends on, like when you create a shared schedule, it has to match obviously the high school schedule and my schedule. So for example, world language supports a small group of 6th graders. It's part of the enrichment we offer during our RTI period, but all 7th and 8th graders will get a full trimester of world language. Band we offer, because I only have the band teacher in my building for about an hour and a half, 2 hours a day. So I planned my school-wide study halls at that time so that any student who wants to sign up for band has access to it. And then he runs a schedule depending on the day to have those kids come in and be available for us. Yep. Yes, sir.
Just could you give us like an example, like say how you split those up? Like say your art teacher is an art teacher half the time, and then she possibly could be, or he could possibly, that person could possibly be a quarter of the time gifted and talented, and then another quarter of the time something else? Is that how you do it? Or is art and music like the same person?
No,
or
it's
just-
not so I have the art teacher that serves the 7th and 8th grade, also then has a daily prep in my building because my periods are half the length of the periods at the high school. So a daily prep at the middle school is the equivalent of 1 out of every 8 rotation at the high school. So the high school, primarily high school art teacher, is in my building for those 2 periods plus her prep period. Then at the 6th grade level, I used to have, when we were in the throes of COVID, I created a position that was art and science. It's a kind of a strange position to advertise for, but we were trying to create pods so that it'd be easier to run the school with all the other stuff we had to deal with. What ended up happening is that in that position, we really came to realize that as the students were entering into the middle school, there were some expectations about their ability to write that required more attention and time. So we created a new class. We call it self-expression through writing and art. It's a clever workaround, right? So I have someone who is qualified to teach English, also is my science teacher because it's a K-8 general certification. And then for the 5 days out of the week, they are teaching basically a writing class to provide that extra time for our incoming students with those skills. And then on Fridays, similar to the specials model at the elementary level, with which they're still kind of familiar and used to, they'll have some art instruction.
Yep, so they are shared with the high school then somewhat.
Some of them are,
it's
some of
very few.
them
Yeah, no, I
teach
just-
multiple things in my
Yep,
building.
Got it. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jason, I have a question. I'm looking at your list
Yeah.
and use alt ed has 0. So does that mean alt ed is done as of this year? And
So-
what is your plans?
Yep. So with COVID relief money, we began an alt ed program at the middle school that was intended to serve students who had really hard experiences. That was evident to us either from information I know from social workers, information I knew from attendance data, or information I knew from academic data. And we created that alt ed program. It was an inclusive program so that it was a group of about 12 students who were in the room together for the entirety. Then there was a vacancy that happened late in the summer, and we began again. And it was one of these situations where the outgoing professional had designed a program that fit their strengths. And I hired a very capable, wonderful, nice person with a different set of strengths. And so the program has kind of evolved and morphed. But the other thing that I've had to come to terms with is that when the students go to the high school, it's not like they're going to continue to be in a completely enclosed program. So I have some ideas on other ways that perhaps I can use that room, other ways that I can perhaps use ESSER funds in the final year of that grant. But the reality is that I don't think it's a responsible use of the ESSER funds next year to continue the alt ed program, because I've already begun the process of reintegrating students into the regular education classrooms.
Okay, so, which is good. So you're kind of doing a different philosophy.
Yes, I am.
And going, because I know you were very pleased with some of the things. So if a child is not being integrated, what would happen? Cannot, we have to.
As the principal, I will have to figure it out,
Okay.
as is the case now. I mean, I have students in my school who are never enrolled in the alt ed program or moved in the middle of the year who struggle behaviorally. Like ultimately, it's going to be my responsibility to try to decide how to move forward. But I can't responsibly continue a program when I know that the direction I'm going in is not going to be the direction I was in originally. And I need to kind of find what that transition looks like. And I've been working with the teacher who's in the position now. She's been wonderful, and we are creating that transition as we go.
Any other questions? Seeing none? Next, I don't know who the principal is.
So I'm going to walk you through Derigo High School. Our mission is to be a safe and respectful community with a rigorous and diverse curriculum that offers opportunities for students to develop skills, gain knowledge, and aspire to make lifelong productive choices. So this budget is going to reflect materials and staff to support regular instruction. The budget for the upcoming school year continues to include funds for co-curricular and extracurricular activities, classroom supplies, the library, salaries and benefits of staff. Overall, the controllable lines at Darragwell High School are down, except for course reimbursements. They are contractual, and I will tell you, they are significantly up at Darragwell High School. And I think that that is partly due to the fact that it's challenging to hire certified staff. So when you hire them and they're good and you want them to become teachers, you need to pay for their classes for them to get the certifications that they need. So many of their teachers are in that position. And additionally, we have a number of teachers who are in or have just been accepted into graduate level programs. And again, we want our teachers to continue to move forward. So I think it's money well spent, but it is significantly up at Darragwell High School. And athletics is also up. Again, as Jason pointed out, it's mostly around transportation, but I'll get to that in a minute. Student enrollment at the high school has been right around 225 to 230 this year, currently sitting at 227. For staffing, we'd like to maintain the current staffing. That means we'll have 2 to 2.5 teachers in each of our content areas: English language arts, math, science, and social studies. It also supports the continuation of future perspectives, foreign language, health and PE, music, and art. And here's your course reimbursement requests. They are up by $35,280 next year for the high school. In co and extracurricular, in order to maintain what we currently have for co and extracurricular, we're looking at an increase of $10,494. As Jason pointed out, that's in bulk about transportation, but it's also the fact that reffing costs are going up and the cost to participate through the Maine Principals Association is also going up. Student support services, we're looking to maintain the academic dean of students. That's who we currently have in there because we were not able to hire a guidance counselor. She's come in, she's done a great job, and she's working towards her guidance certificate. We also will have a guidance secretary and social work position at the high school, as well as that part-time librarian, that ed tech that's shared with the middle school. We also have a full-time nurse currently paid for out of ESSER funds for one more school year. In the office of the principal, we will continue with the superintendent principal position with the full-time athletic director, assistant principal, and the office secretary. There is a market correction for the principal's salary of $6,250. This is a 1 of 5 years correction. I don't know if anybody on the board wants to address that at some point. If not, I certainly can. And then additional requests that are not reflected currently. I had told you already that Jobs for Maine grads has asked for RSU 56 to pay a portion of the cost for that program, $13,500 in the FY24 budget. And then it would go up a little bit to $25,000 in FY25 and then $27,000 after that. They are coming to the next board meeting to talk to you a little bit more about that and why that they're looking to do that. And then the second thing that's in this budget is the ed tech for the alt ed program. We ask for that each year. Basically, I'm putting it out there so you hear it again. And on the back, you will see the listing of the teachers that we have at Darragwell High School. And again, we have mostly 2 to 2.5 in our academic areas, and then more reduced portions like a halftime art music teacher, and art is 60%, those kind of things.
Any questions? Go ahead, Larry.
What exactly is the market correction, and does that $6,250 stay the same, or is it going to go up and down over the 5 years?
I will address it if
You
you want
went,
me to.
he wasn't here, or we did that at a meeting?
It was at a finance personnel committee meeting.
Okay.
So I don't mind
Yeah.
addressing it.
Go ahead.
So the situation is that I just had my 58th birthday, and in 4 years, I'm going to be eligible for retirement. I don't anticipate that until 65. Thanks. My concern for this district is financially, Mary and I have worked really hard to keep this district away from cliffs. And I'm going to be quite frank that you cannot hire somebody to come in and be superintendent, principal, and administrative assistant to the superintendent for what is currently in the budget. And in order to prepare for that and not have a cliff when it's time to retire, the Personnel and Finance Committee met and talked about like increasing this over the next 5 years so that when I do retire, you will have the opportunity to either hire one person to do those jobs or to split it and hire a straight superintendent and a straight principal. But at the current budgeted amounts, I do not believe you would find anybody to come and fill that position. Barbara, do you want to add anything else or anybody from? finance or
No, I
personnel?
think you summed it up because the only thing we've ever done, I think, did you have a 0 one year? We've only done whatever the administrative salary is, and that's been 2% or so. And she does 3 jobs. We are not going to get anyone to do that. If we can get one to do is really our priority. If we can get someone to do super and principal would be awesome. But, and it was just on the news, how many superintendent vacancies there is. There's like 10 or 15. Bruce?
It's just to follow up what has been said is that when we looked at the financial support of this position, we had one person doing 2.5 jobs. And at this current salary, which is not what she was complaining about, it was more or less a concern of what will happen when she maxes out her age and decides, I'm ready to retire. There's no way this district could put someone into that spot. So what we look for is to something, as you said, so they want to end up with a cliff at that stage, we would be able to start preparing to get someone that, if we have the tiered up effect, instead of being caught 1 year, say she retired next year, and all of a sudden you're looking at your budget would be way off kilter if you were trying to hire one person or 2 people to take her position. So what we're trying to do is slowly tier it up so that we've got the salary at an appropriate level so that when we need to hire someone else, whether it was 1 or 2 people, we wouldn't be looking at, oh my goodness, we don't have the funds to do it. So it's a preparation ahead of time for everything and to keep things moving forward.
I would also note that when we had that difficult budget year to get it passed, when the positions were combined, there was no increase in salary. So it was taken on another full position without that increase. And I'm just worried for the district when the time comes that I want you to be able to hire another person or 2 people to continue to do the work here.
Any other questions go ahead, Don.
All right, that's $6,250. Is that just for the principal or superintendent?
You will see that number again in the superintendent's budget when it comes forward. As we talked about at the personnel and finance, they were looking at 12,500 a year for the 5 years to get to the place where they need to be.
So what we're talking about, if we pass this, or this does get passed, each one of them positions, and just the increase in 5 years would get $93,750. That is $187,500 in 5 years just for increase.
That's not accurate.
And listening to the news, some of the superintendents in Portland and Lewiston, I don't think is getting much over what you're getting now.
Oh my
They
God.
have a lot more students.
They get max, even around our area, we are one of the lower paid superintendent administrative. We try to stay within reason. Can you know the exact figure that would be for 5 years? How much an increase? I'm not good at my math.
I can help you.
All right, what is it?
No, Don, I think you misunderstood. The 6,000 was just for both positions, not 12,000. So it's
No, each one is 6,250.
okay, so
For a total of
if you did that by
12,500.
6 years, you'd get like 37,200 and something.
Yeah, you're not getting.
So anyway, I looked up the average superintendent salaries, and depending on experience, which is a big thing, that they're between, in this area, they're between 90,000 and 130,000. So a principal is very similar, maybe 80 to 115, 120. So if you had to hire 2 of them, we'll call them both, say you called them both 115,000. Got to hire 2 of them, that's 230,000. Wow, that'd be part of the pack. Benefits and everything would be part of the package. But that's 230. So I'm thinking what, if we did the 37,000, stepped it up now, that would be maxed out at about, I'm guessing 165.
I haven't done the
Yeah,
calculation.
no,
Mary
we
probably
did,
could
we
get it.
did in that meeting a little bit. I did it in my head. Some similar to that. So that would be definitely 65,000 less than hiring two people, so. But I mean, this is all,
I guess my next question would
Yeah.
be, how much do we pay the assistant principal now?
The assistant principal, the athletic director, it's not, it's both. So what is the share of the assistant principal? Sorry.
The total salary for the assistant principal AD is 76,875, but only 50% of that is for the assistant principal part at DHS.
Go
a
ahead.
lot of places have their own athletic director, have their own assistant principal, et cetera, et cetera. A smaller area like this, you can double them up, so. But if she say we said, all right, we're not gonna give you anything, she's close to 4 years retirement. And we can't feel that she's like holding a gun to our head saying, you gotta give me 1 more year, I'm gonna leave. But if she did leave, think about that. That would be a struggle. Things seem to be going well now. I don't think that's unreasonable offer, what she's asking for. It's my own personal feeling. Thank you.
Liz,
What's the salary now that combined that you get?
I'm gonna defer to Mary because I don't know it off the top of my head.
it's one.
128,000.
Okay. So, and then you want to double, 6,250, one for each position. So that would be 500.
12,500 would be the total each year for the.
Right,
Yep.
for 5 years is, what did I just say? Forgot. 62.5. Or 5 years, or what, was it 5 years? I'm not, 5 years.
And I want to iterate, this wasn't her asking for money. This is looking at a position that we got away with the skin of our teeth because we had somebody that was willing to do it so we could pass a budget. I don't know, and most of you are pretty, aware of what goes around. Our athletic assistant principal is 7 through 12. He's not just high school athletics. He does the middle school too. And we don't have an assistant. She does all her work with the central office, which is a total of what, 3 people or 2 people, central office, 3. So you think about what we've been maintaining, and the reason we've been maintaining that is we got really good people. And them really good people, like Kathy eventually, Mary, we're gonna make her work till she's old. They're gonna retire and we have to find, and I know some of you have been in these interviews. There's not a lot out there for people that really want to work. I mean, we've got lucky on some of our hires that got potential to be really good in the central office and but it's not easy. And like you said, when she retires and we do nothing for 5 years, we're not going to have the money to hire somebody, a good quality person. And I've been around other superintendents and some of the quality is not really up to what we need and to be very creative. So I don't know what we want to do, but we need to think about this. We can't put our head in the sand and say, oh, we'll do it when we get there. We haven't done that with anything else. Our buildings are in top-notch shape because we don't put our head in the sand and move forward so we're not caught off. We've done that with technology. We've done that with our curriculum. And now we have gone by the skin of our teeth because we've been creative with administration in the past where we shared administration principal with middle school and high school. That was a disaster. Somebody needs to be in, I'm not saying, Jason, you were a disaster, but somebody needs to be in the building that you have for an administrator, especially with the things that are happening. So I don't know, we don't need to make the decision today, but it isn't under the impression, which when we had that joint meeting, that it isn't Pam saying, I want this. It's saying, you need to look ahead, what's coming for us. And I don't want to be in 5 years like the first budget we had to do, or was it the second one that was worse? Well, the one and two were pretty bad when we started, and 3, and it was awful because we cut so much. So, and now we're right now at a good spot. So we really need to think about that. Yes, Marianne.
So not to mention when we started the whole entire hiring process and getting the right people in and hiring the superintendent who knew how to negotiate contracts and set all of that up. It's a really important job where the person who is in place, and I can't talk just about Pam because it's not about Pam, it's about the job. And you need somebody in that position with the knowledge, skills, and ability to do the job the way we want the job to be done. And you're not gonna get that from what we have now. We're not without money. That's just the way it is.
I do have a quick question, Mary. When you do the, for state, the budget, is part of her salary super and part is it all one? Is it under the high school a thing? So it's split up?
50% high school principal, 50% superintendent.
Okay. So technically, what do we put for superintendent amount?
Half of 128.
64.
64. Okay, so we got 64 and 64. So what is being proposed, which is 6,000 on one end and 6,000 on another in the positions there. So that's. Any other questions or comments for Pam about this? Go ahead, Bruce.
I'm gonna go back to your high school report, if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
Can you give me a breakdown of how many students we have? 9, 10, 11?
You bet I can. I knew you were gonna ask.
Oh, yeah. Coming up.
Ninth grade, we have 59,
Yeah.
10th, 57, 11th, 56, and 12th, 55. We currently have 127 on our roster.
And are we appropriately staffed for all of these grades?
So with what's listed on the back, yes, we can offer everything we need to offer. I will tell you, we are not overstaffed, so getting electives is a challenge. So if we reduce any of these teaching positions, like, I have one that's retiring. If I do not replace that position, we will basically be offering exactly what students need to graduate and not electives, which would be incredibly sad because we need to have good electives for our students because it makes them well-rounded people, and they also have to have electives to graduate. But currently, we're staffed appropriately. We can't really go any lower than we are and still offer what we need to offer.
Go
The
ahead,
numbers
Liz.
down for enrollment. I mean, has it been steadily going down, or what was a typical maybe 4 years ago or whatever, but has it been dropping off?
So we've been pretty consistent, right around the 220 to 230 for the last, since I've been here. Is that accurate, Brian?
Any other questions? All right, who's next on the list?
Curriculum.
Oh, Jason's up again.
All righty. So depending on the question you ask, I may ask for help from Pam. And obviously the mission of RSU 56 is to prepare our students to become purpose-filled, skilled members of the local and global communities. That was what this district developed when we first became a district. So the proposed budget, and to be clear that there are certain lines that I do not manage that have to do with ELL or gifted and talented and school nurse. There are some others that are going to come up in the final presentation that Pam does regarding the others. So I focused on the lines that I'm involved with, which primarily fall under the heading of improvement of instruction. So what is proposed there reflects both materials and staff to support curriculum instruction and assessment for grades pre-K through 12. So 0.25% of my position is to be your curriculum coordinator, and 0.25% of the administrative assistant at Deerfield Middle School is to support all the organization that goes along with being a curriculum coordinator for a district our size. And then you break it down kind of by those areas. We're looking at a budget to budget decrease in $922 based on those controllable items. And then we're going to flat fund summer school for the high school and the middle school. We are going to pay for a certain number of AP exams. We deliver the NWEA to all grades K through 8 plus grade 10. We're required in the state of Maine to do it grades 3 through 8 plus 10. So the state has, although they've changed the assessment, and I'll come back to tell you that story some other time. Yep.
Reading, you didn't
Sure.
say.
So yes, the state of Maine has adopted a new version of the NWEA, which will be given for the first time this spring. It's called the through year assessment, and I will present on that at a later time. But the reason why I bring it up is because the state pays for that. We begin administering the NWEA because we use the data for intervention purposes, special education purposes, and all other intervention purposes. We begin administering that assessment to kindergartners. We also have some money set aside for SATs and PSATs, and then we use, it's called Easy CBM. It's from the University of Oregon. It's a series of curriculum-based measures. They're shorter probes, and there's an assessment system that's used in grades K through 5. This is often used to progress monitor students who are in special education or in a Title I program. And by using a universal tool, it makes it easier for students to fluidly enter or leave those kinds of interventions, which is really important in developing a more efficient use of our resources. And at the middle level, we also have an account, but it's a different format. And then finally, improvement of instruction includes the curriculum work wage, which we have gotten really good at tracking, and we're right now on track to spend what we spent last year. And as well as, like I said, my position, our membership to the Western Maine Education Collaborative, a few other memberships, and that is that. An awful lot has been going on in the world of curriculum. But a lot of those purchases were math or ELA resources or intervention resources, and therefore we were able to use COVID funds to make those purchases. But that's been a huge part of my time, and inventorying those materials and having a good 5-year plan on what it will mean when some of those books become outdated is something that I'm actively working on with the A team, but we got a plan.
Any questions for Jason? Go ahead,
Yes, sir.
Carl.
Can you help me with the flat fund summer school? And not to beat Bruce, but how many kids typically go to summer school?
Sure. Well, I'll just speak for the middle school. When I became the middle school principal, there was no summer school at Deerfield Middle School. I feel very strongly that the way that we raise standards is by increasing accountability. And I believe that if you have gone through a school year with all the things that we do to try to help you make the grade at the middle school, that if you have not done those things, you need to spend some quality time with me in the summer. The first year we did it in order to keep the numbers reasonable. I only invited students to summer school. I invited them. Do you like that word? I invited them to summer school if they had failed one of their 4 core classes. So science, math, English, or social studies. Then the following year, I increased that to failing any class. And what we have seen is that we've been able to actually reduce the number of students, but it's been averaging around 50 kids. Now, an awful lot of those kids get done in a week because they may have had one bad trimester and they had one class and they failed by 6 points. So the amount of money that is there is $4,000. $4,000 has been supplemented in the past with COVID funds because it's still intervention, it's tutoring services that are provided. And so I am getting to a point where I am scaling back actually how long I'm going to offer summer school and how many staff I'm going to offer to try to bring it down to living in what I think is financially sustainable, which is basically the $4,000 figure that I'm using now.
So the flat fund refers to like $50 a kid if you had, or you had 50 kids
Yes, sir.
and you had, would you say $4,080 a kid?
Yep.
All right.
You figure that the I think the contract states that the working wage for a summer school teacher is $30 an hour. And historically I've run it for 4 weeks and I've had 3 teachers. And then as the time goes on, I have fewer teachers. I'm going to go with 3-week model for this summer.
Now sorry, I had another question too. The CBM, like what disciplines does that check? Like math, science, reading?
It does not, we don't use it for
Behavior.
science. We do not use
No
it for
disciplines.
behavior. We use, so to track behavior, we use Swiss School and Information Systems. That's part of PBIS, which is the Positive Behavior and Intervention system that we've been using for a while. Easy CBM probes focus on reading and math because most of our intervention services focus on reading and math.
Any other questions? How many do you usually have at the high school?
I do not know that number off the top of my head. It's been more over the past few years through the pandemic. But I would say typically we would have 25 to 30 students, and summer school at the high school is about credit recovery.
Yeah.
So if they need to recover because of a grade or because of standards, they are, to use Jason's term, invited to summer school. But I can get that number for you. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Bruce?
So what is funding are you at for the high school? I mean, Jason said around 4,000.
We also have 4,000 in
Right.
there.
It's-
And the slight difference at the high school is I try to get someone who's certified English, math, science, social studies. So no matter what area they're coming in for credit recovery, I have a teacher there. So the ratio is probably a little different than what they have at the middle school, but I do try to cover all of the content areas.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
All right. Next on the list is a motion to approve the 2023-24 school calendar. Could I have a motion, please? And a second? Anything you want to explain?
So it's pretty similar to what we've had in the past. The students would be starting on August 30th. So they'd have a 3-day week and then Labor Day weekend, then a 4-day week, and then into our 5-day weeks. This calendar does have 2 early release days. So right before Christmas break and on the last day of school, we would be getting out at early release. Currently, without any storm days, the last day would be June 6th. Obviously, that would change a little bit with storm days. Graduation would be June 7th. And I feel like we can keep graduation June 7th because that gives me all of the next week to play within storm days and remote days, because seniors do have to be within 5 days of the graduation period. So I will tell you that it's not, I have already met with the surrounding superintendents because anybody who sends to Region 9, we have to be similar within 5 days. This is slightly different than what RSU 10 is looking at this year. It does mirror 44 up in Telstar, and I have already met with the association for the consult on the calendar.
Any questions? Bruce?
So I'm trying to look real quick. Did we build in storm days into this calendar?
So we don't build them in anymore. We just say that students have to go 175 days. So we would just tack them on after June 6th. So if we had 1 storm day, June 7th. If we have 2, it goes to June 10th. If we have 3, June 11th. So it just goes on. I am working really hard to I would do the same thing I'm doing this year. I would work really hard to make sure by June 14th we're out. So a combination of likely the first few would be straight storm days and then going to remote when we can to keep us within that next week.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Liz.
On the remote days, is there a lot of success in having the kids show up?
So surprisingly, it was not bad. So they've been pretty good about that. I guess I would counter with if we had to go into June 20th, we'd probably have more kids on a remote day than we would on June 20th.
Any other questions? Seeing none, could I get a roll call?
Dawn,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Natalie,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Mary Ann,
Yes.
Carl.
Yes.
Can I ask one more question? I don't know. Has Region 9 seen this?
Yes.
Okay.
Have you guys met? Cause you're there for old region updates.
No, we have not. We did not meet this month. They decided that there wasn't enough material to warrant a meeting. However, I did get a memo from our director, and I messaged Pam as well. We've got to find out what's going on with the adult education program. Region 9 is toying. We don't have a director that's getting done. We're in the process of, we were looking to see whether we're going to get another director. I know RSU 10 is looking at possibly bringing adult education into their facility, but it would be a year out. So it leaves us that we may be looking at doing the same thing. So I approached Pam with wondering what we were planning on doing, and hopefully she's going to follow up with something.
So to clarify, if RSU 10 takes on adult ed, it would still run for all of our towns. And we would work to have some offerings at Mountain Valley and some at Darragua High School, some still at Region 9. So if they take it on, we're still looking at the same type of system. It would just be run out of a different office as opposed to Region 9.
Go ahead, Larry.
Question, it sounds like Region 9 is shared by RSU 10 and RSU 56, correct?
As well as 44 Telstar.
Okay. Do we get a budget from them so we know exactly how much they're going to be asking for?
It will come. They just don't have it ready yet.
Quick question. Are you saying that Mountain Valley, RSU 10 may take on the adult ed and we could work out something?
Correct.
Okay,
They're looking at it.
okay. Don?
Yeah, when they decide they're gonna have their budget meeting, are we gonna be notified of it?
I will be sure to push it out to you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's our old business. Now it's superintendent's report.
So I'm going to start with some happy news. I'm really pleased to announce that 3 teachers in RSU 56 have been nominated for the Oxford County Teacher of the Year. Stacy Gilbert at the middle school, Katie Chicoine at Darragua Elementary School, and Sarah Johnson at the elementary school. Additionally, Dr. Charlie Swan was nominated as Principal of the Year. Each of these nominees have to decide if they will continue with the process. It's quite rigorous, but I hope that they will continue with the process. And ultimately, I would love to see some of them receiving these honors because I think we have a lot of great people in RSU 56. And as I noted at the beginning of the meeting, we do have new student reps. So Sylvia Hodson and Diana Kerr will be replacing Joe. And I'm pleased because I think Sylvia and Diana will be a great addition to the board. And I'm really happy that they're willing to serve as our student reps. And while Mr. Keene is coming up to prepare for his presentation, I will tell you that we have hired Dave Husson as an Ed Tech 1 at the middle school with the ESSER 1 funds for the rest of the school year. And Sheena Holmquist, part-time Title I Ed Tech 3 for the remainder of the year at Darragua Elementary School. And we did, unfortunately, have a few resignations come in. Josh Wilcox, teacher at the middle school, is resigning at the end of the contract year, as is Aaron Carlson at the middle school at the end of the contract year.
Jason,
Mr.
do you want to go home? Go home.
Okay.
Because now you got to figure out, Bruce.
Before you go on, what content do these two people do?
So currently, Mr. Wilcox teaches predominantly math and Miss Carlson teaches predominantly science, social studies. Science and social studies. Getting some cues from behind you.
And they deal with what classes? I mean, the whole, amongst all of them?
That's why I waited around. The science social studies position is for the seventh grade. The math position is for the seventh and eighth grade. You're welcome.
And I do know that it's been advertised. I saw that. So, all right, Brian.
All right, so good evening, everybody, and happy Valentine's Day. So, I don't have a lot to talk to you guys about tonight because I'll be talking to you again in another meeting or two here on budget-related items. Just a few quick updates. We are currently fully staffed. Since I met with you guys the last time, we stole Sean Murphy out of special ed to be our technician over at the elementary school in our COVID funded position. We also currently have an opening for an ed tech to assist us with some asset management, which hopefully will be filled here later on in the week or beginning of next week. For professional development updates, I don't think I reported out the last time that we have Jared Hodgkins, who has completed his college degree. So that's a good thing. We also have the main educational technology directors are putting on a physical security event in March. It's supposed to be December and we ended up some scheduling difficulties to move it, but we have 21 different vendors from across the Northeast coming to meet with facilities managers, business managers, superintendents, and tech directors for a day-and-a-half conference in Portland to discuss school security and has a lot of different options and good vendors that are signed up so far. So I'm looking forward to that. The Actum Spring Leadership Conference, I'll attend that in May, and their topic this year is cybersecurity in schools. Quick update on our surplus devices. We held our laptop sale here back earlier in the fall. We brought in approximately 28,000 for our local sale. And today we boxed up the leftover devices to send off to a reseller, Second Life Mac. So those should be after a 30 or 40 day full analysis and check on whatever our remaining is. Looking back, we still have not heard from the last surplus. I could see the question coming, so I added that in here. The company that we had used for our last round of surplus devices, we are still in the waiting on money, have had no communication from them, even though the attorneys have been involved. So we're hopeful, but I know as of a couple weeks ago, when I was at a conference with ELEC, they still have not heard anything. And unfortunately, it sounds like that's not only happening to us, but there are some other schools who are starting to have problems as well. Projects that we have ongoing, our student data privacy push is our big project this year. As of today, I have 52 signed student data privacy agreements. As of March 1st, any software that is used in RSU 56 must have a student data privacy agreement. So hopefully we've made a big, I think when I met with the last group of staff, we were around 32 or 34 agreements. So we've added a significant amount here in the last month. So everything is moving forward and going well with that. The tech department has, as of last week, we finished up our tech department webpage. That link will be going out to staff later this week. And it has all of our department information along with data privacy information, software information, and also has a how-to video section for our staff. That's kind of something that's will be constantly changing and constantly adding to, but something we're looking forward to doing. our tech committee met 2 weeks ago. We had a great meeting one afternoon, talked a lot about what's happening in district, what our future plans are in district. We're looking at spinning up and writing a new technology plan. So we'll be meeting hopefully again sometime next month. And I'm looking for a board member if anybody's interested to join. I think Barb, I think you were on it before. at one
I
point.
was, but I thought somebody else wanted to do it. And I don't remember who, but
Okay.
just put it out there so we know,
Yep.
because I didn't know.
Yeah, I can send an email out and
Yeah,
I can see. And that's all I have for updates for now. If you guys have any questions. or-
questions? Bruce?
I'm gonna start. I know we've updated all of the devices.
Mhm.
Can you, what are all of them brand new now, or what years are they for the high school, middle school, and elementary?
So our elementary school devices are we have iPads for grades pre-K through 3. They're 2020. They were bought in October of 2020. 4th and 5th graders have MacBooks that were bought in 2020 as well. Our middle school are on MacBooks that were purchased in 2021. And our high school is on MacBooks that were purchased in 2022.
My second question is, and with all of our security and cameras, is everything hooked up now and running and up to date?
No, so we have done, Deergo Elementary School and Deergo Middle School have new camera systems in them. Those are finished. The high school, I have a PO sitting or a PO request sitting on my desk for, this from the hallway by the office, those doors to this end of the building and all exterior cameras to hopefully be completed this year. And then next year to do from the hallway doors down on the rest of the interior. Correct. Yep, they do have cameras in them, but the older cameras are we're having problems with quality and there's some cameras that are out. But we're definitely making strides to get that done. And the one thing, talking about devices, our plan for next year, the MLTI project is expanding one more grade level. So our plan is to expand our MacBooks, replace our 3rd graders' iPads with MacBooks. We've had a lot of our 3rd grade teachers who are, their students struggle without having a keyboard because they're starting to do more typing and things like that. They struggle without the keyboard. So they've requested changing over to MacBooks. So I think by looking at the MLTI funding that we can get, along with some more of our COVID funding, we can get those switched out now, hopefully without having to use local funding for it.
Okay, any other questions? I have one question, and I don't know if you guys have discussed it, administration, because it's in the news. What is our stance on TikTok?
So TikTok is blocked in RSU 56 and has been for a couple months now. I think we've done it.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
had
what
to-
I wanted to know. That's all I wanted to know. I didn't
Yep.
know. I have no this way or that way because I can only do one thing. I'm not that, I'm just curious because I had no idea. Bruce,
I have just one more question. Obviously, it's been out there. What's this Chat GPT?
That's what I thought Barbara was gonna ask me about when she started.
I wrote it down.
Yep. So we actually discussed that in our administrators meeting today. The last 2 tech directors meetings that I've been at for the last 2 months, we've had a long discussion over Chat GPT. For those of you that don't know, it is a artificial intelligence engine that's out there on the internet. If a teacher assigns you to write a 6th grade essay on whatever the topic is, you can go onto that program, type in, write me a 6th grade essay on this, and it will write the essay in a 6th grade voice. Exactly. So there's a lot of talk around the process behind it. Do we as tech directors block that? Do we not? Because it's similar to when Facebook hit and we all blocked Facebook to start. And then it was an everyday battle on, well, this is Facebook's address today, but tomorrow it's changed to this because the students know how to get around it. And how much time do we invest in it versus something that may actually have value in another application or another instance. So looking forward, At this point, we are not going to block ChatGPT on our network. Our plan, our hope is to educate the students in the good things that it can do, and hope to outweigh those that may look to plagiarize with it. The good thing is they are working on ChatGPT, and also I can't remember the name of the other one that's basically the same product. They are now coming out with plagiarism checking on there as well. So not only can a student go on and create these items, a teacher can go onto the same website, click on plagiarism check, copy and paste the essay or document in there, and it will come back and say, yes, this was created with artificial intelligence, or no, it's a real, or we think it's a real document. It's a hard thing, but because of how much AI is out there and more things are going with it, it's going to be a difficult thing, but I think it's a good learning opportunity for a lot of the students.
So what is the positive? What does it do positive?
A lot of things, the reason that we can't block it as a category would be, a lot of websites that you go to down in the lower right-hand corner, it'll say, there'll be a little pop-up. This is how can we help you, or things like that. If you start going into, if you click on that and start typing something in, that's actually an AI engine talking back to you. So, yep. So that's one of the things. There are a lot of other applications out there that are using more and more AI engines. So it's only going to get more and more prevalent as we go on. Yep. Yeah. It's just the
Enough
beginning.
trouble with Walmart's remote, no, not to check out the person running the cleaning machine. No, the cleaning machine. It was getting in my way and I'm talking to it. My kids have labeled their vacuum cleaner, the remote one, Vanessa. So I said, I'm gonna talk to that. No, sorry. Anyone have any questions for Brian? I know.
It's constantly changing. That's the challenge.
Thank you, Brian.
you.
All right, you're all set, right, Pam? For the superintendent committee report, Sylvia, you don't have to talk unless you're ready to. Okay, thank you.
So the girls had a basketball game tonight at Halldale for their prelim game. And that's probably just about over now. And updates. And then the boys basketball team also, they ended up seeded number 1. So they have a bye for their first round. So we'll wait and see what happens for that. And then as for school, we've had a few bathroom problems, but Miss Dorian and her team has done really good to come up with a new hall pass system and expectations on the bathroom door so that we can thank our custodians because the bathroom has been trashed lately. And also coming up on March 3rd, we have a drug prevention day to teach us about the effects of drugs and alcohol. So hopefully that will help with our problems at school.
Thank you. Any questions for Sylvia? Or Randy? They must be in an uproar.
Can I just reinforce though, that it's hard because literally 95% of our students are behaving appropriately and doing what they need to be doing. So it's really saddens me to have to take steps around the bathroom because most of them know how to use it appropriately. So, but we do keep working on it. And I talk to students when I kind of brainstorm like what can we try next. And I do really appreciate all of their support and help in that.
Okay, thank you. Policy report. We didn't meet. Did you get any policies from them? Oh, thank you. We'll get to them. Finance, Carl?
We pretty much did quite a bit of financing tonight, so. I will say the meeting ahead of the meeting that we went, that Don and Bruce and I and Barbara attended on Friday was very helpful. Barbara wasn't there. You're always there, Barbara. It was Mary. They both have glasses.
And I
Okay, curriculum, I do know they didn't meet. Buildings and grounds, anything to say? You haven't met.
Kenny went through a lot of what's going on, and I didn't bring my stuff with me on the building and grounds, 'cause I was thrown off on different things, but so far we're, we're in good shape. As you heard earlier, the added on thing is that we did get approved for a bus. Hopefully we'll have it on our agenda real soon so we can move forward with that, because it's basically has been proven solid facts that as we continue to move forward, we are always in a rural area. We're transporting a lot of students, putting a lot of mileage. And if we don't continue to upgrade our fleet yearly, we're going to be it's going to be another one of those prevented cliffs. If we don't stay up on it, it's going to bite us because things are going to start breaking down, going to start having problems. So we've done really well on what we've done. We found that we have very few buses that are causing any problems, and being able to update it is keeping us in good shape.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Negotiations were on hiatus this year. Personnel, Natalie,
Nothing new to report.
and ad hoc didn't meet. Board member comments. I just want to iterate, I think it was Jason, I didn't know who said, but we have awesome administrators in Kenny and the custodians, bus drivers who really made sure our buildings didn't explode over when it was cold. That it was very crucial, and they do such a good job. Any other board? Go ahead, Mary Ann.
Always something to say. So it was very, very exciting for me. I got to participate in mock interviews for JMG, and I was only able to be here for 2 afternoons and met with, I think it was 6 students total. And I teach interviewing for a living. And I interview people on the personnel committee, and I do it a lot. And these 6 people I met with, the high school students, did so much better on those interviews than some of the people I interview for professional jobs. And it was really encouraging to know how much thought they put into what their future is going to be like. So that was very exciting for me.
Thank you. Any other board member comments? Seeing none, we have no executive session. Could I have a motion to adjourn? And a second.
Second.
Roll call.
Carl,
Yes.
Mary Ann,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Natalie,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yeah.
Larry, Dawn,
Yes.